Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Erik Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health, and of course, a certified holistic nutritional therapy practitioner. That is me. What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing great. Hope you're having a good day, night, morning, walking, running, walking the dog, picking up poop, sitting at work, ignoring people around you, driving in the car, sitting in traffic, riding the subway, flying on a plane, whatever you're doing. Hope you're feeling great. And if you're not feeling great, well, you came to the right place, because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you feel great. Not just good, not just okay. I'm here to help you feel great. And that's actually what today's podcast is all about. We're going to talk about how you can actually help yourself feel great. No matter what's going on in your life, stress, down times, whatever is going on in your life that sucks, you can always feel great, you know? And that's really part of being an a-hole, you know? In the face of tragedy, in the face of bad times, in any kind of situation that's going to be problematic, or maybe you fuck up a little bit and you eat the wrong food, or you go on a bender, or you just feel like crap, well, I'm here to help you get you back to that high elite level, that high elite performer level. That's where we're going to go. And it really starts with how you feel on the inside. Because I know how some of you are. You want to be an a-hole, you're trying your hardest, but there's these little lingering things, you know, these little lingering bits that you can't get rid of, and it makes it difficult to really buy in to the program, you know? We all have that. We get motivated, right? Monday motivation. We all feel like, okay, this is the week. This week's going to start the month, and this month's going to start the year, that it all turns around. It all changes. It all starts today. Today I woke up and I had a green smoothie. And then I'm going to eat a salad at lunch. And then for dinner, I'm going to eat chicken breast with some black beans, some broccoli, and some rice. And then I'm going to go to sleep and I'll wake up and do it all over again. And maybe you get about 2 days into that plan and you just fall apart. We've all been there. But there's a reason why that plan never works, or that motivation, or that mindset thing. It's all bullshit, is it not? Is it not bullshit when people tell you about this mythical willpower that you just need to just be at your best and to avoid the foods that, you know, you can't avoid? The foods that have gotten you, or the habits that have gotten you into the places where you are now. Because there is an actual physiological component to this that just gets completely ignored in this discussion. You know, why are meditation apps so popular, right? Why is meditation becoming so popular? Because people are just looking for just any way to feel better. And it's no secret that things like depression and anxiety are just crippling people in today's world. I live in New York City. I'm around the craziest motherfuckers on the planet all the time. And by crazy, this is a spectrum, right? There's not just crazy, oh, this is like mentally crazy. I'm talking crazy like, sure, mentally crazy, mentally ill people, but then, you know, what's the difference between them and someone who's just a chronic hustler? Someone who's just hustling from gig to gig to gig to gig, working in the day, grinding at night, working in the day, hustling at night, hustling in the day, working at night, sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, if that, maybe. And they're the picture of what everybody wants. I just want to be that grinder. I just want to be on Grindr, grinding it. No, I just want to be that grinder, right? And what invariably happens? You set these bars so high for yourself, and then when it doesn't work out for you, immediately you become sad, right? And so people are dealing with things like depression because they look on their life and they can't appreciate the things they have. And even if they try to appreciate the things they have, they still feel like they're not enough. Maybe you feel like this. Maybe you feel like you're enough, but you just have this general malaise. You wake up in the morning and you're just kind of like, what's the point? You physically maybe can't even get out of bed in the morning. Like you wake up and your body just feels totally drained, right? Or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're one of these people who just can't sleep. Like you just physically can't lie down and relax. You're constantly like picking at your fingernails or chewing your fingernails. You're constantly on your social media trying to stay updated to the latest person status update, or you're trying to keep up with the latest news. You know, you have anxiety and it's just killing you. And where does this come from? Does it come from a chemical imbalance in your brain? Yeah, of course it does. Were you born with it? Maybe. Maybe you were. Does it mean that you have to live with it forever? Absolutely fucking not. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to overcome depression and anxiety. No matter who you are, no matter what your situation is, I promise you, if you implement even just one of the 6 things that I'm going to introduce to you today, if you implement one of these things, and I mean like you commit, you absolutely commit. You say, I'm going to not be a little bitch anymore. I'm going to get over myself, and I'm going to actually change my physiology. I'm going to actually change the biology in my brain. I'm going to actually change the chemical imbalance in my brain. If you do these things, you will start to do that. And you're not going to worry about willpower. And you're not going to get upset if willpower doesn't work. Because willpower is a bunch of fucking... It's a bunch of, woo-woo dog shit. It doesn't matter. You don't need it. In fact, I would even argue that willpower is the thing crippling people. Because a lot of times what's happening to people is a lot of this stuff stems from the pursuit of the perfect you. The you that in your mind you can achieve. You watch a movie. You're on somebody's Instagram. I'd say probably social media is the biggest proponent of this now. Whatever it is in the media, you see that and you say, I can have that. And you start to pursue it. And maybe it's the perfect body. And so in your mind, you've convinced yourself you're too fat. You're too chubby. So what are you going to do? You're going to calorie restrict. You're going to cut fat. You're going to cut sugar. You're only going to eat like 1,000 to 1,500 calories a day. And then you're going to exercise 6 days a week. And then a month later, you're going to look at the scale and you're either going to be the same weight, you might be heavier, or maybe you've lost maybe a pound or 2. And the math doesn't equate in your mind. You're like, how did that happen? How does the math of this work that I've only lost 2 pounds, considering I'm eating nothing all day and I'm going to the gym? And somehow I feel terrible. Well, because what you did is you just completely jackhammered your body's natural physiology. So let's get into this, right? Enough of the hyperbole. Enough of the soft edges here. Let's get into the meat and gluten-free potatoes of what I'm talking about here. So how are some ways that we can avoid doing the extreme, which is saying, fuck it, I give up. I can't do this on my own. I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to get on. Oh, I almost sneezed. I was going to sneeze, but I didn't sneeze. And I don't really sneeze a lot anymore, which is unfortunate because I really do love a good sneeze. But when when you're healthy, when you're an influencer in the health space, you don't get sick, dude. And I'm telling you, I want to be sick. I have not been sick for over a year now. And it's really crazy. It's really freaky. And I'm doing everything, like I've said, I'm doing everything to get sick. It's like 60 degrees outside. I'm walking around in flip-flops and shorts. The math should equate to me getting sick, but I'm not getting sick. Okay, we're back on track. So how do we avoid going on these psychotropic medications that are making people crazy? That's really the goal in all this. Again, not trying to be perfect, not trying to be perfect health, not trying to be, not trying to BS yourself through this. You're trying to actually avoid going on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Because we know what happens to people when that happens. They get a little bump, they feel better, and then what happens? The side effects start kicking in. And people are on this shit for years. And then invariably, it all fails, right? Because it's going to fail whether it's not going to work or you're going to experience side effects, which will fuck with your health. So the first thing that I need to emphasize to you is taking care of your gut. This is very important, and I probably talk about this every single episode of this podcast because your gut really is your second brain. The ancient Greeks knew this. The medieval people knew this. Our old ancestors knew this. Everybody knew how important it was to take care of your gut. And in the last 100 years, we've just said, oh, that's woo-woo dog shit. What did they know in the 1800s? We got modern medicine. We got big pharma. We can handle that stuff. We don't need to take care of our gut. I'd rather eat Cocoa Puffs and Pop-Tarts and macaroni and cheese than take care of my gut. And subsequently, people's guts are an absolute disaster. And even more subsequently, people are very fucking emotionally unstable. So first things first, before we start getting into, complicated stuff, let's dial it back and say, how do we take care of our guts? I mean, there are a lot of different ways. What is your gut problem? That's the question. What is your regularity of going to the bathroom? Are you going to the bathroom a lot? Are you having regular bowel movements? I mean, there could be no more precise indicator of what your gut health is than your bowel movements. Are you having a bowel movement every single day? Are you having several bowel movements every single day? Well, then you're probably doing okay. You're in a good place to start. Fact is, I would say a majority of people are not even having a bowel movement every day. Are you having a bowel movement every other day? Well, that's not good. Are you having a bowel movement every couple days? That's even worse. Are you having a bowel movement once a week? That is terrible, and you got to fix it. So how do you fix it? I mean, really, one of the best ways that I can think is you need to have a diet full of a lot of different stuff. You need to have variety in your diet. It's not as simple as just saying increase fruits and vegetables and eat clean. What does that even mean? Because for a lot of you, I would say fruit is probably not a good thing to go with. And I know I'm taking a huge left turn on things I've said before, because I, in my heart, don't want to tell people to not eat fruit. But the fact is, a lot of people have some serious sugar issues going on. Maybe you're hypoglycemic. Maybe you're insulin resistant. Well, maybe you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, in that case, even the fructose in fruit is not such a great thing for you. Does eliminating fruit a long-term solution? No, because you need to eat fruit, man. Fruit is full of, first of all, fiber, nutrients, vitamins, minerals, water. It's so good. It's so good. But the fact is the sugar the fruit that we're eating today has a lot more sugar than it used to have. And quite frankly, most of us are not in a position to eat that kind of sugar, right? So for the time being, you want to have a huge variety of vegetables, okay? Now, I know it can get complicated when you start talking about low FODMAPs, GAPs, oxalates. A lot of people might be sensitive to things like, what are we talking about? Vegetables, nightshades, right? So maybe you need to know where you are in that realm. But if you're like, I just don't even know where to start, well, then let's start by saying you want vegetables at every single meal you eat. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. You want green, leafy vegetables. You want You know, you want the cruciferous vegetables. You want things like cauliflower, broccoli sprouts, kale, spinach, collard greens. Swiss chard is huge, right? Beets are such a powerful food for your gallbladder, for your overall health, right? For your immunity. Beets, you need onions. Onions are amazing for your gut. What else is there? I mean, there's so many vegetables, and of course, God damn it, I hate to say this, but you want to try to lean organic as much as you can. I know we had the organic episode a few episodes ago. Do I trust organic? Not even a little bit. However, you know, I do have to kind of err on the side of doing the best you can. You know, I know not all of you are going to be able to go to a farmer's market, right? I know most of you live in a place where maybe the only place to get your fruits and vegetables is a Walmart or like a big name, or like a big box grocery store or something. The organic there, who knows, right? But I mean, you got to kind of like hedge your bets with it. If you're like, look, I can't afford $3 for a bushel of kale versus like the 99-cent non-organic option, then get the non-organic. Yeah, you're going to be swallowing pesticides. You're going to be swallowing GMOs. Maybe those in themselves can present some health issues, but we have to do more than good. It's all about the ratios, right? Is the ratio of good outweigh the bad? If it's something like non-organic vegetables, I think you're going to be okay, right? This is coming from a guy who's eaten mostly non-organic vegetables for many years now. Do I have health issues? Of course, we all do. But they're being mitigated by the fact that those vegetables, they still have nutrients in them. So, you know, for your gut, yes, vegetables, tremendous. Things like bone broth, right? Bone broth is huge for gut health, right? We're talking about minerals in bone broth that actually physically heal the gut. Something like L-glutamine, which is an amino acid, which is good for your gut specifically because it actually will repair the cellular wall of your gut. I forget the name of the what is it, the particle or the molecule that it actually puts together, but it actually helps repair the lining of your gut wall. L-glutamine, huge. You know, you want to eat plenty of fat and protein, right? Now, here's the thing about your gut, why specifically why gut health is good for depression and anxiety. Because 90% of the serotonin in your brain is made in your gut. Isn't that crazy? The serotonin, this is the chemical in your brain that actually kind of keeps you feeling good. Right? It's the molecule, it's the neurotransmitter in your brain that actually keeps you level, keeps you even keel. This is what SSRIs are built to give you more of, right? They don't deliver extra serotonin. What they do is they block the disposal of the serotonin in your mind because the serotonin that goes in your brain, eventually it's used in the serotonin receptor, and then it gets transported out back into the blood through the liver, and then you poop it out, right? The SSRI basically, from what I understand, blocks the serotonin receptor so that the serotonin kind of stays in your brain longer, or it blocks the output of it. Either way, it's designed to keep the serotonin in your brain longer. So my point is people take that because they're not getting enough serotonin. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to hoard the serotonin they have. When in fact, you could just eat to take care of your gut to produce more serotonin, and this won't be an issue in the first place. Okay? Not to mention, you get all that fiber from good vegetables. Also, you need good vitamin C. You need things like B6, magnesium. These also help your liver detoxify stuff. This plays into your gut as well. So taking care of your gut is most definitely one of the biggest things you can do to help your depression and anxiety. What's the next thing we got? we got thyroid health. Now, this one goes out to the ladies, because the ladies are the ones who are having the big time thyroid problems. This is not to say that guys don't have thyroid problems. I would venture to say guys have major thyroid problems, but we see big time thyroid problems pop up in women, right? You get hypothyroid is probably the biggest one. Hashimoto's is big. Hyperthyroid. Thyroid medication, from what I understand, is the number one most prescribed medication in all of the pharmaceutical world, because people's thyroids are an absolute disaster. Where does this come from? It comes from the standard American diet. It comes from the standard American diet, comes from the lack of iodine in the diet, but mostly it comes from the excessive amounts of sugar in the diet. The thyroid does not do well with sugar, and it also comes from the fact, specifically something like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, this comes from leaky gut. This comes from your gut wall actually ripping and tearing, and food particles entering into the blood. And essentially what happens is, when the food falls into your blood, the worst offender of this, by the way, is gluten, because when gluten ends up in your blood, your body's immune system builds an antibody to it, because gluten mimics thyroid hormone. So your immune system builds an antibody to the gluten, which then it mistakes thyroid hormone for, and your immune system will attack your thyroid. So this is why a lot of people, specifically women, have this Hashimoto's, right? You look at their diet, and their diet is filled with grains. This isn't your fault, ladies. We've been told for years by the USDA and their food pyramid that you need a diet full of healthy whole grains, right? You need healthy rice. You need healthy breads. You need healthy pasta. You need whole wheat toast and all this nonsense, right? Now, on the flip side, I will say, because I do like to be, unbiased in this conversation, that in a lot of regards, these grains do hold nutrients in them. Something like niacin, something like a lot of them have fibers. You get extra B vitamins. Maybe like in beans, you get things like molybdenum. But here's the thing about this grain situation. It's not that these grains don't have these nutrients. It's that when you eat them not correctly prepared, as in not properly soaked or sprouted, you're not getting those nutrients. You're just getting the wheat proteins, the gluten, the gliadin. This is what fucks with your body. Now, if you take like rice and you sprout it, if you take your grains, your flour, and you sprout it, if you take quinoa and sprout it, now you have actually a very nutritious, wheat germ, right? Now you've made the nutrients in the grains bioavailable. But the fact is, 99% of the grains that are eaten in this country are not eaten like this. And quite frankly, it's kind of a pain in the ass to make this happen. Now, there is a company, that does this. That actually sells sprouted grains for you. They're called Healthy Flour, healthyflour.com. If you go to healthyflour.com, you can actually buy things like amaranth, buckwheat, organic sprouted corn. All this stuff is sprouted, it's soaked, it's actually prepared correctly, so you actually can have grains that have nutrients in them. And the nutrients, this is the other thing about the grains, when you eat them, the phytic acid actually binds to the nutrition in your body. So even if you are eating right and then you followed up with some grains, the grains are just taking all that good stuff you ate and binding it and then eliminating it out of your body. So you're not getting any of the benefits of the nutrition you have. This is why grains are such a problem. And of course, it's a problem to your thyroid. Now, what does thyroid even matter? Well, I'd be willing to bet that most of the people that get put on antidepressants, especially women who get put on antidepressants, actually are hypothyroid. Because one of the symptoms of hypothyroid is depression, anxiety, restless leg syndrome, constipation. You put all this stuff together, yeah, you're going to feel pretty lousy. You're going to feel pretty lousy. And I know some of you have gone to your doctor, your endocrinologist, and they're like, well, your thyroid's fine. It's because most of them don't know how to actually read thyroid labs, or they've been trained to not prescribe things like natural desiccated thyroid hormone or something like T3. Right? Because T3 is the active form of thyroid. In your thyroid produces T4, and then it converts that T4 into T3 so long as it has enough selenium, it has enough tyrosine, has enough iodine. You also need things like B12. You need enough iron, right? You also need B6, magnesium. And again, most of you are deficient in this stuff. So your thyroid's not working right. If your thyroid's not working right, yeah, T3 is a hormone that goes into your cell and actually jumpstarts a lot of the metabolic processes that create ATP and energy. So if you feel low energy, if you just feel like you're dragging ass, if you feel like you don't have the ability to be social, if you feel just like tired on Friday, Saturday nights, if you just feel tired all throughout the day, if you just feel like you're dragging ass, and then you double down and you get some coffee, people are drinking insane amounts of coffee, insane amounts of energy drinks. Don't even lie to me like this isn't an issue. Starbucks, well, nobody would be talking about Starbucks if people's thyroids were working right. But then the caffeine, it's a negative feedback loop because it kicks your adrenal glands in the high gear, and that just completely messes up your whole hormone balance. So thyroid is very important when it comes to this sort of thing. On the other hand, if you're hyperthyroid, maybe you're making too much T3, maybe your thyroid is working overtime, which a lot of us are. I would probably put myself in that category. I don't know what my thyroid's at, but I'm willing to bet I've been hyperthyroid many times in my life. Now you're probably talking about anxiety, because now you just have like these bolts of energy. Your mind can't stop racing. Your body can't stop. You constantly feel like you're just falling behind. You just want to just keep going and going and going. You burn yourself out, hyperthyroid, right? So people are feeling like this kind of wired, this kind of, can't keep up, living in the future, always just kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses, never feeling like you're doing enough, right? Anxiety. Okay, hyperthyroid. Hyperthyroid is a chemical. Anxiety is a manifestation of hyperthyroid. Depression is a mental manifestation of hypothyroid. And Hashimoto's is basically a symptom of your gut not being together and of probably eating the wrong stuff, okay? So fix your thyroid. Get your thyroid labs checked. Get on NDT or T3 or one of the thyroid medications if that's what you so need. And then, of course, the third thing in this depression, anxiety, funhouse would be adrenal fatigue. Man, we just talked about the thyroid. We're talking about how thyroid and how the adrenals control a lot of your hormones. Well, your adrenal glands make about 30 different hormones, right? The most popular being cortisol, right? Cortisol, progesterone, aldosterone. We're talking about these glucocorticoid hormones that, that control the way you actually feel. Right? Because a lot of people, are dealing with adrenal fatigue. I would be willing to bet, I walked out on the streets of New York City. I'd be willing to bet at least 80% of people in New York City walking around right now have adrenal fatigue. And I don't know how you can't. Because this city is the city that never sleeps. This is the city where you just hustle yourself literally to death. Adrenal fatigue. Because you're constantly pumping out cortisol. We understand what cortisol is, right? Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol gets secreted from your adrenal glands when your body, when your pituitary gland senses that there's a stress in or outside the body. The second that your brain senses some kind of danger, It's communicating to your pituitary. Your pituitary is communicating to your adrenal glands to start secreting cortisol so that you can jump into fight or flight and even fight a motherfucker or run from a motherfucker. And by motherfucker, I mean, bear, dinosaur, mountain lion, snake, all those wild animals that are here in the streets of New York City. Because that's why that function evolved in us. Because when we were cavemen 2 million years ago, this was the threat that we needed cortisol to keep us safe from. Now the cortisol comes up, from just walking around so many people, or bright lights just beaming into your eyes, or constantly looking at your phone and trying to keep up with Twitter and social media, trying to keep up with the news. You're constantly stressed. This is emotional stress, by the way. This is just one of the stresses. You've got physical stress, right? Your body is in physical stress. You know what I mean? Your body's in physical stress for a number of different reasons. One of the biggest is diet. Diet full of sugar. And you know who you are. You love sugar. You're addicted to it. You can't not eat it. You don't not have a sweet tooth. I was talking to my dentist yesterday. My dentist is like, he's like in his mid-60s. Looks great. He's like, I work out, I eat right, but I got a sweet tooth. Of course you do, dude. We all have sweet tooths. That's another thing that's evolved in us. The sweet tooth. The sweet tooth is what kept us alive for so many years. It's what told us to eat the berries on the tree. The berries had all the nutrients in them. It's what made people eat those freaking tubers out of the bottom of the ground. Because they didn't have sugar, but the tubers broke down into glucose in our body. So they still elicited an insulin response, right? And so anytime you elicit an insulin response, this comes from anytime you eat sugar or starches or grains, you're going to elicit an insulin response, which is going to elicit cortisol, because cortisol jumps in once your insulin delivers the glucose to the cells to basically prop up your blood sugar. Because what happens is you eat sugar or starch or grains or carbs, breaks into glucose in your body, your insulin comes in, sweeps it all up, delivers it all to the cells, but now you have no glucose in your blood. You need glucose in your blood. So your cortisol gets secreted to go break up protein stored in your muscles and your liver to deliver, it's called gluconeogenesis, to deliver glucose back into your bloodstream. Right? And if this is a chronic thing for you, which again, for many of us it is, you're probably bordering on hypoglycemia, right? Meaning you're just not getting enough glucose in your blood. So you're just always needing more glucose. This is the negative feedback loop that happens when you start eating too much sugar. You're basically training your body to completely dysregulate its sugar. When you dysregulate sugar, you're in stress. What happens when you're in stress? You have cortisol. And again, your adrenal glands, they're like any other gland in your body. It's like any other muscle in your body. If you just overuse it, it's eventually going to fail. And when the adrenal glands fail, this is called adrenal fatigue. And if you have adrenal fatigue, what's happening is now you're not pumping enough cortisol. You're not pumping enough cortisol throughout the day to keep you energized, because again, it's okay to secrete a little bit of cortisol here and there, right? You need cortisol to get up out of bed in the morning. You need cortisol to get motivated to go out and do something. You need cortisol to just kind of feel alive. It's when you have excessive amounts of it that the shit gets out of control. And when you live in a state where the shit's just constantly out of control, you get to adrenal fatigue. Now for the little things you need the cortisol for, the cortisol's not there, or it's there in such small amounts. And this is why, again, you feel lethargic. You feel just exhausted. You feel fatigued. You wake up in the morning and you just don't feel like getting out of bed, right? This is coming from adrenal fatigue. And so people misinterpret that as depression, right? Because you also need it in your brain. You need that stress response in your brain so that you can react to stuff, right? So that you can feel happy, man. Sometimes feeling happy is enough of a stress that you need the cortisol for. You need that excitement in your life. If you don't have it, you're going to feel fatigued. And there's no bigger proponent of adrenal fatigue than excessive sugar consumption. So again, sugar messing with your adrenal glands, messing with your thyroid glands, also messing with your gut. So do everything you can to avoid it. Let's go to the next one. Mineral imbalance. Dudes, babes, a-holes. Your body, 60 to 70% water. What's the rest of it? Minerals. Minerals. Your bones, your blood, your muscle tissue. It's made up of minerals. Calcium, zinc, potassium, sodium, copper, magnesium. All of these minerals, so important in your body. And most of you are dealing with mineral imbalances. Again, standard American diet, stress. For a lot of people, it's excessive. Could be excessive work, could be adrenal fatigue. The thyroid plays into this. So eventually what you need to do is sometimes you need to supplement with these minerals, right? Sometimes you need more zinc in your diet. Sometimes you need more sodium or potassium or iron or whatever it is, right? And it's all based in ratios, okay? So it's not like, I'm not saying, and I'm definitely not saying, go out and buy yourself, zinc supplements or go out and buy calcium supplements. Please, whatever you do, do not take calcium supplements unless it's absolutely necessary, which for many people it's not. So when your minerals are not in balance, it's going to mess with your mind. If your sodium and magnesium are not balanced, it's going to affect your adrenals. If your calcium, potassium isn't balanced, it's going to mess with your thyroid. If your calcium's out of control, it's going to mess with a lot of things. If you don't have enough magnesium, you use magnesium to actually antagonize calcium. I know we've been told for years that we need more calcium. The problem is a lot of people have too much calcium in their diet, in their blood. They're taking calcium supplements. Your body has enough calcium. It's about the transporting of calcium. Calcium buffers between your bones and your blood. And the problem is if you end up with too much calcium in your blood, your body's still going to move it places. But it's going to move it places that it's not supposed to be. It's going to move it to places like your lungs. It's going to move it to places like your pineal gland, calcification of your pineal gland. It's going to move it to your arteries. It's going to move it to your heart. It's going to move it to your gut, right? You can test for calcium in these places. And if there's too much of it, this is where you start getting problems in these areas. If you have too much phosphorus in your body, that can stress out your adrenal glands. This is the problem with soda. Soda gives you a ton of phosphoric acid. If you have too much phosphoric acid, you're literally stressing your body out. You're actually placing your body into fight or flight mode, whether you're having a soda, whether you're having just a club soda. The phosphoric acid elicits a stress response. And if you have too much of this, again, you're going to just send your adrenal glands completely out of whack, right? So you need to know your mineral status. Well, Eric, how do I know my mineral status? Well, lucky for you, I do something called a hair mineral analysis. So what I do is people who work with me, I take samples of their hair. And even if you're bald, you can do this with your body hair. It's pretty gross. You can do this with your pubes. But ideally, you just take like a little small sample of hair off the back of your head, close to your scalp. If you go get a haircut, you can just collect the hair from your haircut. You send it into the lab, and then I can interpret that for you and tell you what your mineral status is. I can also see what your heavy metal load is. I can see your ratios. I can see what specific minerals you have or you're deficient in or you don't have enough of. These are all very, very important, right? So if you are interested in doing that with me, you can just contact me through Instagram. You can email me directly. You can hit me up on Facebook. We can set something up. This is a thing that I can do remotely. I don't actually need to see you to do this, okay? But you can do it through me. There's other mineral practitioners out there. You can go get a Genova ion test through your doctor. Whatever you do, go make sure you check your minerals and make sure you are sufficient in minerals. And then you got to know how to interpret those. And, if you do something like a Genova ion test, there is a fella by the name of Chris Masterjohn. He's a PhD. He's got a great podcast, great YouTube channel. Definitely one of the smartest dudes I know of talking about this stuff, he's got a worksheet called the Testing Nutritional Status that will basically walk you through how to interpret your different minerals and nutrient scores on your blood work, so you know what is actually good. You don't want your doctor interpreting that for you, because your doctor, they don't know anything. But you want somebody who's like a functional doctor, someone like Master John, who can interpret that for you. And I do have actually a link that you could download that out. I believe you can find it for like $30. But you can go through my link and you can get it right there. And I'll put that in the notes of the show on the link in your podcast player. So we're getting close to the end here. So we got 2 more here. So sugar intake is my 5th one. Sugar intake. So I mean, this should just go without saying at this point, right? Sugar is really, I mean, just a scourge. Just a scourge that is a mainstay in the standard American diet. Could we have just completely jacked up human civilization anymore by introducing the mass production of sugar? It's more addictive than cocaine. I mean, goddamn, you know? We look down on people who do cocaine. We send them to therapy. We send them to rehab if you got a cocaine problem. But if you got a sugar problem, you're fine. Nobody stigmatizes sugar problems until you get fat and until you become absolutely miserable. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with him? He's so down. Is he on drugs? No. He just eats a ton of sugar. Man, you look like you gained weight. What happened? Oh, sugar. Yeah. It's a problem, and it's a problem mentally, right? You're probably missing neurotransmitters if you're eating too much sugar. You might be missing catecholamines, right? You might be dopamine deficient. You might not have enough serotonin. All these things we've talked about, right? They all play into it. Now, if sugar is an issue for you, the number one thing I would say you need to do is you need to eat more fat, more animal fat. I'm sorry, vegans. I'm sorry, vegetarians. If you're a vegan or if you're a vegetarian, you can do this, what is it, like the lacto-octo thing where you eat dairy and eggs and stuff. Eat eggs. Eat egg yolks. You need that B12. You need that choline in there, right? You need to eat fat. If you're a vegan, eat coconut oil. Right. You're not going to get the fat you need from nuts and seeds. You're just not. Believe me, I was there. I was hungry all the time. I ate so many nuts and seeds. And nuts and seeds also, if not properly soaked and sprouted, can also present problems. So if you're going to try this route, man, look, no one's going to hate you if you just eat some butter. If you just eat some, if you cook in like animal fat, if you cook your vegetables in tallow or lard, right? I'm not going to tell anybody, but you'll feel a million times better for it. So you need to eat more fat. You need to just give up every little bit of sugar you can, any way you can. Most importantly, what I will say is you want to get on something like glutamine. We were talking about L-glutamine before for the gut health. Now, if you're going to do, if sugar is a problem for you, you need glutamine because that's going to actually stabilize your blood sugar and I believe help with your pancreas. Also something like, oh God, what is the name of this stuff that is in my kitchen? Can't think of the name of it. Taurine also helps, very good. And berberine is also good. A lot of people like to jump on metformin. Berberine is kind of a substitute. It's an alternative for metformin. But L-glutamine is the big thing you want. You want high dose. So get yourself some 500 milligram capsules of it. Take a couple when you first wake up. Take a couple, before lunch. Take a couple after lunch, and that's going to help you out a lot, right? You want stuff, that has something like phosphatidylcholine in it. That's also very good. So yeah, help yourself. Get over your sugar. Get over your sugar habit, right? This leads to, you're talking about anxiety, right? We're talking about sugar withdrawals. We're talking about people wired on sugar. I mean, the way that it actually affects your things like neuropathy, your fingers and hands and feet going numb, controlled through the sugar pathway, right? Talk about, just feeling like, wired, like after you drink a Coke, talking about going on a sugar, insulin, glucose roller coaster, right? Where there's glucose in your blood, and then there's too much glucose in your blood, and the insulin comes in, the cortisol comes in, the glucose is there, your body doesn't know what's going on, you're dropping blood sugar, you're feeling like crap, you're getting grouchy, you're hangry, and people are like, what's wrong with you? Are you anxious? No, I'm just starving because my sugar is out of control, right? Oh, and let's also throw caffeine in there as well, right? If caffeine is an issue for you, because that's wiring people out of control, then you want to jump on something like what is the caffeine? Something like LPA or tyrosine, right? Also, vitamin C is going to be huge. You want to take real high dose vitamin C. I'm not talking about ascorbic acid. I'm talking like whole food vitamin C. Just go to Amazon, type in whole food vitamin C, and there are some good ones that pop up. You don't want ascorbic acid. Avoid ascorbic acid. It's literally, it's not vitamin C, right? It's like vitamin C's dumb stepbrother. It doesn't do what you need vitamin C to do. Don't take emergency, right? Worst comes to worst, eat lemons. Eat a lot of lemons. Okay, squeeze a bunch of lemon juice out of a fresh squeezed lemon into some water. Drink lemon and water. It's loaded with vitamin C. And the last thing we'll talk about are amino acids, right? So amino acids, of course, are what build protein, okay? So a high protein diet. If you are feeling depressed or anxious, get more protein in your body. Things like we were talking about L-glutamine. Again, L-glutamine is an amino acid. Tyrosine, tryptophan, what do we got here? LPA. We're talking about phenylalanine. How do you say that shit? Phosphatidylcholine. I don't think that's an amino acid. L-phenylalanine, D-phenylalanine. It's DPA or DLPA is the short form of it. Basically, these are amino acids that help build neurotransmitters. So a lot of times, if you are depressed, if you're anxious, you might be missing things like endorphins, right? Those are the feel-good neurotransmitters after you do things like, work out, right? You might be missing serotonin, right? Again, the other feel-good neurotransmitter that is just kind of what makes you smile throughout the day and kind of keeps you hopeful and keeps you optimistic. Dopamine, right? So many people are either missing dopamine or you have a genetic single nucleotide polymorphism, a SNP, basically a genetic mutation that clears dopamine out of your brain very quickly. So if you do have the right amino acids and it is making the neurotransmitter dopamine, it might not be staying in your brain long enough to actually utilize it to the fullest extent, which is why you have, someone like me, you're like an adrenaline junkie, right? People like this have easy afflictions to addiction, right? Because you're always just searching for a high. You can never get high enough, right? So amino acids are going to actually be the base of these things. They're actually going to build these neurotransmitters so you can actually feel better, right? I know I've done podcasts in the past where I was very critical of protein, right? And that's kind of like a keto thing, the keto community isn't protein isn't the most keto thing because protein breaks down into sugar without the presence of more fat. So for a little while, I was kind of like on a keto-ish kick, but I've dialed that back a lot to include more protein in the diet. And I got to say, I feel really good. I do feel like my mood is improved. I don't get cranky, really. I get cranky a little bit. I'll get moody. We all do. But not so much anymore now that I've increased protein. And you want whole, good source fatty protein, right? So you want chicken with the skin on. You want eggs with the yolk. You want, red meat. You need a lot of red meat, right? Red meat gets such a bad rap. It's so stupid. But you need red meat, you need the choline, you need the B vitamins, the B12, the B6, the B3 niacin, the B1, the B2. You need all that stuff. You need the heme iron. You need all that stuff, right? It's all cofactors to build the proteins for the amino acids to directly affect your mood, okay? So, I know I ranted for a long time in this episode about a lot of these things. I didn't think this podcast was going to go this long, but look, these 6 things right here, I'll recap them. Gut health, or I'll recap them so that you know the things you need to work on to improve yourself to avoid getting antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, okay? So to help your mental health, the 6 biggest things that I've laid out for you in this podcast are gut health, thyroid health, adrenal fatigue, mineral imbalances, your sugar intake, and increasing amino acids in your diet. Now, even though I've talked for a long time about this, it really doesn't even begin to cover the gamut of how complex all of this stuff can be, right? I've made a pretty convincing case as to why you need these things, but to get specific for your own, bio-individuality, you need a very specific plan, because something like, let's say, for instance, amino acids, well, different people need different amino acids, right? The thyroid, different people need different treatments for the thyroid. Adrenal fatigue, different people need different approaches to your adrenal health, right? So all of this is bio-individual. You can't know anything unless you get your lab works done, right? Again, Genova ion test, hair mineral analysis, any of these tests that you can get that can tell you. You need to know what your blood sugar's at. You need to know your data that you can break down to actually successfully put together a plan that you'll actually be able to feel the difference in. Because it doesn't matter if you load yourself up with nutrients and you don't feel. But if you have the right nutrients, you will actually physically feel the difference. So if you have questions on this stuff, please do not hesitate to ask me. You can write me directly. You can send me an email to holistic.a.whole@gmail.com. You can join one of my Facebook groups, either Bro Health or the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group. You can message a question in there. You can find me on Instagram at Holistic A-Hole. Send me a message or take a screenshot of this episode playing in your player. Put a little comment there. Throw it on your Instagram story. That's always fun. Or find me on Twitter, Holistic A-Hole. And if you want to work with me, if you want to get yourself a hair mineral test, if you want to work with me as a health coach, you can just shoot me an email to ericlevinutrition@gmail.com. So there are a ton of ways to get at me. Also, if you love this podcast, please remember to subscribe and go on to iTunes, leave a nice review, and tell your friends. And if it's your first time here, take some time, go through a little Holistic A-Hole binge, catch up on all the previous episodes. And again, thank you all so much for listening. I hope this helped you in some way, shape, or form. And I look forward to talking to you on the next one. Got some real special ones coming up here, so keep your ears tuned, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.